Producer Des has thrown in some line in the script about Premier League becoming like Ligue 1. I'm going to ignore that, but we know that in most top European leagues, there is sort of a big fish that's a lot bigger than the rest of the fish swimming around. Now, are we starting to see the emergence of a debate over whether Manchester City are perhaps too good for the Premier League? I'm going to come to you first, Nigel Reo-Coker. Are City too good for the Premier League, or do you think that now depends maybe on how long this City can continue in this kind of imperious form? Because I don't quite feel that we're at the same level yet as a Bundesliga, where it's literally only Bayern Munich up until now. And they might still win it this season, who have basically been champions for the last decade or so. I always debate this point when talking about Ligue 1 because there are some examples of teams that have managed to win the title. But, point taken that, PSG dwarf a lot of their domestic opponents, especially when you look at the budgets and the sort of financial disparity between the clubs. City kind of have that despite the financial riches at play in the Premier League. So are we sort of reaching a point now where City can maybe pull ahead and be much, much better than the rest of the competition in the Premier League?
I disagree. No, I think you just have to look at this current race right now. Look at the fine margins. We're talking about the difference in 3 games in drop points, not losses, just drop points in the sense of a draws. It's still tight. I think the only reason why we're not seeing it as competitive with the likes of Liverpool being involved and Chelsea and all that, apart from Liverpool, Chelsea's absolutely I don't even want to use the word, but it's completely run the wrong way, where it's just a mess. Because you look at those players on paper, they should be a lot more in a better position than it is. Credit to the likes of Newcastle, credit to Unai Emery turning Villa around. So I don't think it is as bad as people make it seem. I think that the Premier League is still very competitive. And I think next year we're going to see changes at other clubs, and it's just still going to be as competitive. The only difference with City is they have the luxury of having a squad that Pep Guardiola built, which he's got 2 teams that can compete in both ends. Other clubs can do that. It's not Pep's fault that other clubs are not buying the right players and getting their squads, their starting 11 and their bench to be as good and as competitive as Pep Guardiola. Because let's be real, you talk about Chelsea, Liverpool, probably Newcastle and all these other clubs now, they will be able to attract top-class players for the cities that they're at. So at the end of the day, that's where it's at. You just have to give credit to a well-run club like Manchester City with the players that they've gone after, the structure and the system that they have in place. Other clubs have the capabilities to do it, and they just haven't quite done it. But I don't think we're at that level yet.
Michael Hood, what are you saying to that?
I agree with Nigel. I was hoping Nigel would agree with you or agree with that statement so I could hammer him. But once again, we're on the same wavelength this week, and it's not a commonality on House of Champions. No, I think if you look back over the last couple of seasons, you can't say that. You can't compare it to some of the other leagues because there's been a title race in just about every year except maybe 2020. I mean, Liverpool have gone neck and neck. It's been a 2-horse race. This year, another 2-horse race. When these other teams, I'd love to see what Newcastle does when they start attracting even bigger players, the likes of Alexander Isak. I love this guy. I love what he did with the Swedish national team. I loved him at Real Sociedad. He will continue to grow and adapt. When they bring more depth in their ranks, I can't wait to see what they do in midfield. They have the core there, but they will start getting world-class talent, and they got the budget now. And I think we'll start seeing a 3-4-horse race in the Premier League because the league needs that. The league needs more and more competition to keep City and hold them accountable.
Yeah, the only thing I would say to that is it's hard to deny that it'll be 5 out of 6 if City go on to win this. That I do think that is. I don't think we're going to enter into a Bayern Munich territory where it's 1 in 10 another team wins it. I think it'll be more than that. But 5 and 6 is a little bit alarming in that it's been purely dominant. Even if it's a 1-2-horse race, it is a game of margins. We've seen that in 3 weeks. You can't slip up against a Manchester City in the way that Arsenal have because somebody else will come and take that from you the way that Manchester City have. And now they have this belief that they can keep doing it. I agree that Pep Guardiola is a big part of that. I agree that there's more teams coming in to put pressure. But when you looked at the start of this year and the way that Manchester City started, it felt like somebody else's year. Right? It felt like that. It felt like this is going to be the one. And we can't always go and say it's got to be Liverpool or we're never going to see a Leicester City run like that again. But it felt like somebody else's year. And City are still now on pace to potentially finish 90-plus points, which would have won them the title in many of the last seasons besides the one where they got 100 points on the season. And so it's tough to think that they're not going to be able to get into that 80 plus points to 90 plus point seasons year in and year out. It's just going to require somebody to be marginally better than that, which means they have to be almost perfect over a season, right? We saw that with Liverpool knocking on the door, and they go on and they can do European things, or Chelsea can do European things. But to manage all that in a season, I agree with Nigel. Teams have funds. They have the resources to be able to do that. There's the data out there to go and build a model around that type of thing, but executing it, it could take a year. It could take a decade of failures before you actually dial that in. But I wouldn't say we're anywhere close to a Liga or a Bundesliga in terms of, the expectation from the start is one and only one.
Well, and obviously, when you have somebody like an Erling Haaland, that's basically a guarantee that you're going to be scoring a hell of a lot of goals and winning a hell of a lot of points over the course of a season as well.
How long for, JJ? That's the question. Let's put it in there. Let's put it in there in atmosphere. How long do you think Haaland wants to stay in Manchester City for? Because I can tell already he has his eyes set in one particular club. There's one club that he wants to play for, and he's in a circle of let it out there already.
Inter Miami.
I mean, you can't.
Austin.
I mean,
Arsenal. Arsenal. Come on.
You can't blame him for wanting to score a goal in front of the whole tent and being able to celebrate with the home support. Nigel Rio-Coker. All right, that was it. That was a CTA to you guys listening in from Nigel Rio-Coker. Send us your thoughts on what that means for Erling Haaland. If Manchester City were to win a treble this season, would he suddenly turn his sights to potentially his next move, maybe Real Madrid, maybe somewhere else, or whether he's going to be dominating the Premier League for the years to come with Manchester City? Of course, this wasn't the only Premier League fixture of the evening. There were a couple of other games as well. Chelsea going down 2-0 at home to Brentford. You've got Nottingham Forest beating Brighton 3-1. West Ham losing 2-1 at home to Liverpool. I'm going to come to you first, Nigel Rio-Coker. What was the most surprising result of this evening to you?
Brentford beating Chelsea.
I mean, is that really a surprise, though? I mean, I kind of asked you as like a loaded question.
It wasn't
I
a surprise, but I'm
days.
picking that result. All right, I'm picking that result. Brentford beating Chelsea, yes. Because for me, I'm sorry, there's no excuse. It doesn't matter who's in charge of Chelsea. When you look at the first team and you look at that starting 11 of Chelsea, there's no way those players with the international experience that they've got, the quality and the level that they should be at, should lose to Brentford without being disrespectful to Brentford. But there's no way Chelsea should be still on this terrible losing streak. I'm sorry. It's just, it should not be acceptable. From what Chelsea were, the standards of what Chelsea was supposed to be, to now, it's just laughable.
Yeah, I fully agree. I mean, if you look at just the graphic, if you're watching this or if you're listening to this in audio form, you got one goal scored for Frank Lampard's side in the last 5 matches. It's crazy that you have that much quality, hundreds of millions of quality on the pitch. And I'm not even talking about just the strikers. You got billions of quality on the field. The 4 of us can go out there right now, and we've got a decent chance of at least conjuring up something. If we can just put enough effort or fight or belief into it, you can create something out of nothing. So it's just to me is, I agree. It's a really disappointing way to look at things. And you expect it even just get us to the end of the season, get us a few wins, get us excited about stuff. But I mean, just that match alone, Brentford hopped Chelsea in the table, which is crazy to me.